morning, depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, I am here to tell you that the very best deck in the Pokemon trading card game right now is Mewtwo and Mew. And look, I know that the other day I gave you a top 5 decks in the Pokemon trading card game right now video, and I know that I put Mewtwo and Mew as a, almost there deck. I put it as an almost making the list. I said it was very, very good, but I said I wasn't entirely sure that it was necessarily still right at the top of the format, and I didn't know exactly what build of it was the best right now. Well, there was a 1,600-person tournament in Japan this weekend, and in that 1,500-person tournament over in Japan, we got our answer pretty definitively. Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, not only did the lovely Antoine Boulet get a third-place finish with a welder-focused variant of Mewtwo and Mew, but the winner of that 1,600-person tournament was Mewtwo and Mew. Now, to be clear, it was on my list, but it didn't make the top 5. Maybe I'm still right, but I think when at least half of the top 4 of the 1,600-person tournament over in Japan is Mewtwo and Mew, maybe I need to turn around and go, well, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I was just a little bit wrong. But Mewtwo and Mew, it's the most adaptable card ever. Now, some people have started calling Mewtwo and Mew the best attacker ever. We can have a conversation about that, but it's not been winning as consistently as things like Darkrai EX were back in the day, or the Gardevoir from Secret Wonders was back in the day. So there might be a little bit of recency bias going on here. It's certainly one of the best cards we've ever seen, and I don't think there's really any counter-argument to that. But is it the very best attacker ever? I'm not sure we can necessarily say that quite yet. In terms of success, certainly in terms of adaptability, I mean, yeah, it's number one. It is definitely number one. So what we've got here is the ability perfection that lets you copy the attacks of any Pokemon GX or EX, but the X's have rotated, so we're talking GXs, on your bench or in your discard pile. And then for free energy, 200 damage, if you've got at least 1 extra energy, you get to heal all damage from all of your Pokemon, which is a really useful attack because it deals decent damage or healing all of your Pokemon. If you've got a couple, even if you've just got one Mewtwo and Mew that's about to be KO'd, that's still saving free prizes. That's pretty gosh darned good. So then the question becomes, alright, if you're going to go and win this big tournament over in Japan, what are you going to be playing with it? Well, there are a bunch of options. Let's run through them. Mega Lopunny and Jigglypuff. Now, Mega Lopunny and Jigglypuff, very simply, is here for the big attack, the one that was supposed to end Pikachu and Zekrom. What we've got here is free energy, 60 damage, plus 60 more for each of your opponent's GX and EX in play. If your opponent benches too many GXs, this becomes a really nice attack. Bearing in mind what you're really doing here is just sticking it in the discard, and then if at any point your opponent puts too many GXs on the field, you punish them. If they don't, you don't. Does have a GX attack that puts your opponent's active Pokemon to sleep, and if you've got 4 extra energy on it, you do 200 to one of your opponent's bench. Bench KO, potentially for 2 prizes plus sleep. It's a useful attack. It's not the main reason to play the card, but it is a useful attack. Reshiram and Charizard is one that we've seen many times before. It's got a 2 energy outrage attack that lets you do 30 damage plus however much damage is on you. Nice as a low energy attack if you've got damage on. 4 energy, 230, it's quite a bit of energy, but as you'll see with the rest of the Pokemon, just a flat 230 is actually really nice if you can get the energy on. Free energy 200 as a GX attack isn't amazing, but if you go second on turn 1, this is your best option for a free energy attack. This is the most damage you're doing turn 1. So if you go second and your opponent's got a 200 HP or less Pokemon in the active, this is actually going to be a lot of the time what your option is. This is the kind of attack that donks. Bearing in mind you can't just use it as a basic Pokemon, and against something like a Zacian, for instance, or a Zamazenta, you will get a fairly easy turn 1 KO for a Welder and an Energy, which could win you the game. So yeah, we'll use it sometimes. 6 energy, 300 goes through anything is lovely, but it's a very expensive attack. We've got Gengar and Mimikyu here, and Gengar and Mimikyu is another one of these that you're basically playing just in case. It is very much an option card, because what it does is for just 2 energy, it lets you do 50 damage for each trainer card your opponent's got in their hand. Now it's got a GX attack that says your opponent can't play any cards in their hand during their next turn, buys you some time, etc., and can make both players draw to 7, making Poltergeist better. You'll use that sometimes. But this is really nice for like, hey, my opponent's got a big hand, let's punish them. Or even, look, I need to do 250 damage and I've only got 2 energy on. The chances of all 5 cards in their hand being trainers is low, but it's my only chance of winning, so you know what? I might as well, ladies and gentlemen. I might as well. We've got Naganadel here, and I love this Naganadel. This Naganadel is basically your option for going after the bench. Because what you've got for 4 energy, you discard 2 and do 170 to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Annoyingly, not enough to get a KO on a Crobat, but definitely enough to get a KO on a Dedenne GX. And this essentially is what you're going to be doing with this the majority of the time. It's there to take out Dedenne. There are plenty of other things that you can do, plenty of other Pokemon to KO, but this is very much going to be your usual one. And again, there is a seldom used GX attack here, but bearing in mind, all these GX attacks could be perfect at the right time. You add a card from your opponent's discard pile to their prize cards face down. You give them an extra prize card. Maybe you take a card out of their discard that they really want to recover, or maybe you just give them an extra prize to take. Again, it's not one you're going to be using all the time, but early game when things are going a bit slow, making them take an extra prize could be kind of fun. Now, Vileplume is a very standard card we see in all of these Mewtwo and Mew builds, because for 2 energy, you do 180 damage. Now, it's 180 minus 10 for each damage counter on this Pokemon, but before you've been damaged in the early game, Aurora Energy and a Welder, and all of a sudden, you're hitting 180 damage. Not bad. Obviously, Reshiram and Charizard can hit 200, but that is as a GX attack, which is frankly, ladies and gentlemen, not the same. Speaking of GX attacks, Vileplume does have a GX attack, but it's not one you're going to use all that often, honestly. 50 damage plus burned, paralyzed, and poisoned. Really good for buying yourself a little bit of time, etc., but not usually the one you're going to go for, but it's nice to have as an option. Speaking of GX attacks, there is a Pokemon here that is played pretty much entirely for its GX attack. It is Charizard. The Family Charizard GX, the one that was supposed to be a generic rubbish card. Because for 4 energy, you do 300 damage. Now, annoyingly, you cannot do this turn 1, going second, because Welder attachment only gets you 3 energy. But go first, attach an energy, and then turn 2, energy Welder 300. Your opponent's had a single turn, you're hitting for 300 damage. In the mirror match, your opponent's had a turn, and you get a KO on Mewtwo and Mew. It's a very, very strong card. Now, speaking of non-GXs, or at least GXs we're not using to attack, we've got Galarian Zapdos. And Galarian Zapdos here is unashamedly a counter for Eternatus VMAX. The attack is reduced by 1 colorless energy for each Pokemon V your opponent has in play. And the attack, which will end up being for a single energy, because your opponent, in matchups like Eternatus, they're going to have 3 Pokemon V out, does 170 damage and discards a special energy before you deal damage. it runs through Eternatus hilariously. We've then got 3 copies of Dedenne GX and 1 copy of Crobat. Those are your draw Pokemon. 1 copy of Eldegoss to recover supporter cards. Really nice in the mid to late game to make sure you've got exactly what you need. And then we've got 1 copy of Jirachi GX, which takes away the weakness of Psychic Pokemon. But bearing in mind this is a double-sided effect, it works for both players, so you have to be a little bit careful. I.e. in the mirror match, fine, it will stop your opponent hitting you for weakness, but it will also stop you hitting them for weakness. Be careful how you play it. We've then got 1 copy of the Marshadow, which lets you essentially sit on the bench, and then whenever you feel like it, you get rid of a Stadium card in play. It's nice to counter Stadium cards. Now into the energy, it's very simple. We've got Fire Energy because we're playing a Welder build, and we've got Aurora Energy because we're not only using Fire type attacks, we need a few other energy here and there, so that's where Aurora Energy comes in very nicely. Plus, when you attach it, you have to discard a card from your hand, and a lot of these are evolved Pokemon you want to discard so that you can copy them with Mewtwo and Mew. Now, moving over into the trainers, I've had a chat with Antoine about this. There are basically 2 weird things about this list. Number 1, we've got 4 Professor's Research, which is not generally the way Mewtwo and Mew decks tend to be played. It's just a very aggressive way of drawing cards. And obviously getting your Pokemon into the discard, which you are very much going to want to do. That is the only real draw card we've got other than Welder here, and Welder attaches 2 Fire Energy while drawing 3 cards. It has absolutely got to be on your list here. The other weird thing we've got, it's not so much weird, but it's very, very relevant, is Stealthy Hood. Stealthy Hood prevents all effects of your opponent's abilities done to the Pokemon this card is attached to. And there are things out there like the new Inteleon, which has got the same ability as Decidueye GX, just drops damage counters. There's other things like that out there. But this is largely there for Mimikyu. You see, ladies and gentlemen, there is a Mimikyu which is still legal in the format at the moment, came out in Cosmic Eclipse, and it's got an ability that says Pokemon GX that have any damage counters on them have no abilities. Well, that would be pretty bad when you're considering that Mewtwo Mew is a GX that entirely relies on its ability. So you have Stealthy Hood there to attach to Mewtwo Mew to basically make sure that anyone that is teching in a Mimikyu isn't going to have a particularly good time against you. Outside of that, we got Quick Ball to search out our basics, and we've got Cherish Ball to search out GXs, which is how we get all our Pokemon. We've got 3 copies of Air Balloon to make sure we got the right Pokemon in the active at the right time. We've got Giant Hearth as our stadium of choice to search out our Fire Energy. We've got Boss's Orders for Gusting to make sure we can bring up and KO the right Pokemon. We've got Super Rod for a little bit of recovery here, especially useful in case one Galarian Zapdos isn't enough against Eternatus. 2 copies of Reset Stamp. If your opponent is near the end of their game, if they're about to win, you can put them down to a low hand size. They shuffle the hand into their deck and draw a new hand equal to their remaining prizes. That's kind of fun. And then we've got 1 copy of that new tool card, Tool Jammer. This is the one that, if it's attached to the active, your opponent's tools have no effect. So you can do things like turn off an air balloon to stop them retreating and things of that nature. It's kind of fun. Here is the list as a whole, and frankly, this is a very, very good list. It's got to be a very good list so that you can win a 1,600-person tournament. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much a given. But what we've got here is just a great, great way to play Mewtwo. And I suppose an apology for me. I essentially had it as the 6th best deck and didn't put it on my list of top 5 decks. Let's just say, and I'm quite quick to point out when I'm right, so I like to also be quite quick to point out when I'm wrong. I was very much wrong about this, ladies and gentlemen. I was very much wrong about it. But now I want to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would you? Get us, me nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.